What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I am the Fox Said, and this is my 2002 BMW 330i that is currently a 5-speed automatic. And today that is about to change because we are going to swap it with this manual 5-speed transmission. So just a little backstory on this car. I bought it from a very kind gentleman for under $1,000, knowing full well that the automatic transmission was having an issue. Apparently, previous owner replaced the clutches and did kind of a partial rebuild on the transmission and put it all back together, and it would drive fine for about 30 minutes and go into limp mode and lock either 4th or 5th gear, pull over, clear the code, car drives fine, 5-10 minutes, does it again over and over and over and so forth. So obviously something's going on in there, and I just don't know enough about it, and manual swap is pretty cheap, so that's what we're gonna do. So real quick, let's just go over everything we need to do this swap. First things first, you need a manual transmission. This happens to be a 5-speed Getrag out of a 525. I think you're gonna need a manual drive shaft. We have the transmission cross member. Then you'll need your pressure plate, clutch, and flywheel, flex plate. Man, it's been a while. And pedal assembly. I was able to get the dead pedal, and somewhere around here is a gas pedal that matches, and then you've got your clutch and brake pedals here. And then it's got your master cylinder line coming off it, and somewhere around here, oh, this guy connects to that. That goes up to the transmission. So you'll need all that as well. Okay, first things first, we're gonna have to get the driveline disconnected and get it out of here. And to do that, we're gonna have to remove the exhaust. These 4 bolts, 15 millimeter, are pretty notorious for breaking, just due to rust and corrosion over 20 some odd years. If you don't know, PB Blaster is the shit. So we're just gonna soak that down to begin with, and that's just gonna lessen the likelihood that we break them off and or have to beg for our lives to get that loose. So we'll just let that simmer. In the meantime, we're gonna go take off these cross members here. I believe they're a 13 millimeter. Okay, then we come to the back side, and we've got 2 mounting points on the muffler here. These are 2 13 millimeters, as well as tucked up under here, also 2 13 millimeters. Okay, and then just a side note, if you are equipped with the exhaust flap, there's going to be a little vacuum line here you're going to want to undo. I deleted mine, so there's really nothing going to that, but if you got it, disconnect it. Okay, now that we've had these bolts soaking in PB Blaster for 10-15 minutes, let's just pray to the German gods that this goes smoothly and doesn't become a giant pain in the ass. We're going to try and break them free by hand first. Okay, definitely a bigger ratchet. Now, I've never taken one of these apart and not had at least one snap on me. Okay, that one went well. Let's go for this guy. Oh, 2 for 2. It's looking promising. Let's see if we're gonna need an extension. Okay, this one's tight. I think this is the one that broke on the last one I took apart. Come on. Jesus Christ. All right. I'm going to save you for last. Now this one. Maybe you'll be nice. Oh yeah, can't lose. All right. I got to get the breaker bar. All right. Come on in. Well, maybe I'll get a jack handle extension. Come on, you piece of shit. All right. Jack handle extension incoming. All about proper application of leverage. Something like that. So I'll just show you all what I got going on here, baby. We got 15mm to extension, to a breaker bar, to a long ass jack handle, and it's probably gonna break. Jesus, come on. You are going to come out one way or the other. I'm sorry, it has to happen. Oh, that felt like something broke. Oh yeah, God, I just bought these two. This happens when you buy cheap tools, I guess. I got another one, little memento. I'm gonna try a shorter extension. Oh wow, well, fucking retard. Okay, got like an eighth of a turn. This sucker's gonna break. A little more, come on. Oh, well, maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, I think she's loose. Now we'll just zip her off with our handy dandy impact. This last one, there's nothing else holding the exhaust in, so I do have it supported at the muffler. I probably should put a hand under it. You may crush yourself. And she should be loose. Nope, there she goes. Okay, we have great success. Okay, now we got that out of the way, we can take out the drive shaft. Haha, psych. We gotta take all this heat shielding off first, but it's pretty simple. It's just a bunch of 10mm all over the place, and we'll leave this on, but we'll fold that back so you can get to the bolts on the cross member there. So those two, and then I believe it's just two more in the back out here by the diff. Yep. So differential, there's the mount, and there's your 10mm. You're gone. And then same on the opposite side. There she is. And that's it, right? Maybe. All right, and here we have our drive shaft connecting our differential to our transmission. So this has got to go. Pretty simple. Back here you've got your E12s. If you don't know what the E stands for, it stands for E-Torx, and that is essentially one of these guys. This is what they mean when they talk about special German tools. I don't think American cars use these, but I think I spent $15 on that sit. Whoop-de-doo. And then here you're going to have three 18mm. You got to hold a wrench in the back, and I believe these are 13s holding your center carrier bearing thing, and that's it. So let's go. When dealing with E-Torx, you really don't want to strip these. You will hate your life. So I recommend doing it by hand, and make sure you're over it tight. That thing slips and you strip it. Oh, welcome to hours of misery. So I've just got my 1/2-inch ratchet just to get them loose. Of course, you want your transmission in gear so it doesn't slip, and I'll usually do the first bottom 3, go put it in neutral, spin this thing, and then do the other 3. I believe it's 6 in total. Jeez. Make sure that sucker's on there. I may have to go spin this. Let's see. Nope, that's coming loose. Okay, so I'm gonna run up, put it in gear, spin this sucker around. Okay, and it's just the same thing. Make sure you're on there good and tight. Keep them loose. Do not strip them. Oh, come on. Don't be like that. I didn't put it back in gear, I just put the e-brake on. Come on. Don't ever do this. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay. All right, I gotta go spit it. Okay, these are already loose, so no worries buzzing them out of here. And then just make sure you hang on to this thing, because it will hit you in the face. And last one. Oh, forgot the last part. So, right somewhere in here. Where'd it go? Oh, there's a little cutout. You can get a pry bar in here. Then you just gotta pry this thing off real quick. Okay, so detail shot right there. That's the groove I'm talking about. And you just basically put your little pry bar in there, pry on that while hanging onto the drive shaft and trying to hold a freaking camera. And basically this thing will just pop right out. I don't know if I can do all three of these things at once, but I think you get the idea, right? Alright, so there wasn't enough room with that pry bar. We're going to try screwdrivers here. See if we can get this thing loose. Come on. There we go. That was it. Alright, so that's loose. Now we're going to come up to the transmission side. Okay, so basically what you're going to do is you're going to line up that bolt downwards, 18 millimeter on the back side, and 18 millimeter on the front side. Give her old hee-ho until she comes loose, and then just rinse and repeat 2 more times. Jesus. And just buzz them all out. Okay, now she's loosey-goosey. So final step then is this here center support bearing. It's just a 13 and a 13. Make sure you got a hold of this thing, because now it will hit you in the face. Okay, and remove the drive shaft. Goodbye. Okay, now we got our drive line out of here. We can start getting to the actual transmission. First things first, that front skid plate's gonna have to go. Okay, under the front of the vehicle now. Normally there's a plastic splash guard under here. I already have mine removed. And holding on this metal skid plate is gonna be 2, 4, 6, 8 15 millimeter bolts in the corners. Okay, and it just drops down. Don't mind the oil, she's German. Okay, so we're gonna need to rotate the engine in order to access the bolts holding the torque converter to the transmission. And to do that, we need to access the lower pulley, and to do that, we got to get rid of this fan. They do sell a special tool to do this. It's kind of just the way I do it. Proceed with caution. You're basically going to wedge some kind of pry bar down in here against the bolt and the bottom of this nut. And then you're just going to put a crescent wrench down on there, biggest one you can find, and then you just whack this with a hammer. And that's it. Side note, very important side note, it is reverse threads. So righty loosey, lefty tighty. And then once that's loose, this should just spin right off clockwise. And, oh, no, there she goes. But yeah. Okay, so upon inspection of the video, I happen to notice all these hairline cracks going along this pulley. So I don't know if that's just because it's 20 years old plastic and German, or if that's because of the way I take this off. So again, proceed with caution. Luckily I can probably find this part in the junkyard for like 10 bucks, so not a super bummer, but something to be aware of. Okay, while we're up here, there's a couple things we can take care of. We're obviously going to want to put a wrench down here on that lower crankshaft pulley. It's 22 millimeter. And then the other thing we're eventually going to have to do is rock this engine back to access the upper bolts on that transmission bell housing. So we're actually going to want to loosen the motor mounts to make that happen. The passenger side is obviously pretty simple to reach down there. It's just a 16 millimeter long extension on a swivelly, and it'll just come right on out. No problem, but the driver's side is a little bit different of a story. We've got this whole air box and intake boot and all this crap in the way, so that's all gonna have to get out of the way. Taking this air box is pretty easy to get out of here. It's just two 10 millimeters right there and right there. Then this MAF sensor, you just push down on this little tab, pull out, very easy. Then we're going to want to go ahead and remove this vacuum line here. Then that's going to give us access to this little screw right here. Remove this hose clamp right here. Now with everything out of the way, we can just start taking this all out piece by piece. First the air box, and the intake tube. Boot. Sorry guys. Everyone calm down. Now with all that out of the way, we should be able to reach through all this mess to that bolt right there and undo that motor mount. Alright, so under the car, find your oil drain plug, come over to the passenger side where your catalytic converters are, right up here on the bell housing. It's a little plastic cover. Just use a screwdriver, pry that guy out of there, and now you can see there's your torque converter. So what you're going to want to do is use that wrench you put on that crankshaft pulley and always spinning your engine clockwise. Unless you just have a lot of time on your hands and hate money, go ahead and go counterclockwise. But you're just going to keep rotating until, there you go, that bolt right there. So what you can see is I've just got a 17 millimeter to an extension, a long breaker bar. With the other hand, you just hold the motor on that crankshaft pulley and just give her a turn and just spin that bolt out of there. And that's it. Rinse and repeat 2 more times. Okay, so looking at the bell housing, we can see that we've got some more of those pesky E-torques ranging from E10 to E14. Now all these ones on the bottom are obviously pretty easy to get. It's the top ones. There's 3 or 4 up there by the starter. That's what I meant when I said we're gonna have to sort of lift the engine to drop the back of this transmission. Give us enough room to get an extension over the top and get those last bolts. So, I guess we'll start with the easy ones first. 2 E10s and an E14. All right, next we're going to want to get this shifter assembly ready. Get rid of the shift knob. Do not twist or your knob will do that because mine is broken. Sometimes you got to put it in neutral, but basically you're just going to want to grab it probably with 2 hands and just pull straight up. This one, like I said, came out easy because she broke. Next, just pull up on this. It's just held in with some clips. Come right off. You have a couple electrical connectors there to get rid of. Okay. And then in my case it's 2 T25s, but I believe these came from the factory with Phillips heads here. This is just how I bought it. It didn't even have these, and I had a couple extra screws laying around, so that's what she got. Anyways, get those out of there. Come on. And then this whole thing will just lift up, and then you're going to have a couple more connectors there for your switches. Just press and pull or squeeze and pull, pretty simple. And then pull that whole thing out of there. Then you're going to have 2 Phillips heads. Okay, then what you're going to want to do is shift knob back in, key to ACC, pull that sucker all the way back, and then you can see up there you got 2 little clips. And we turn the climate control down. You see there's 2 little like tabs in there. Basically going to reach under there. Imagine I'm doing this with both hands. This is already loose. You're going to push up, and then this whole thing is going to come out. And then you've got 2 more Phillips heads up in the top. Then you're just going to grab a hold, pull this whole thing out, remove those 2 electrical connectors, and then you're going to have some more electrical connectors on the back side here. Get rid of those. And then this whole thing's free. Put the shift lever back. ACC off. Next, you're going to want to come in here and remove any spare change laying down in here because you are a filthy human being and have no respect for money. Then it's going to be 3 T30 Torx. One here. One over here. And one over here. You're going to have one last electrical connector over here to remove. You're going to have an electrical connection here. Go ahead and remove that. And you're going to have a 10mm right there. Go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, then once you got that bracket loose, you're going to have a cable down here. Make sure this thing's all the way forward in park. And it is called a Bowden cable for all you fancy people out there. And you're just gonna rock that kind of to the side, and it just pulls right out. And then that's pretty much it. This last cable here is actually connected to the transmission, and we will loosen that up from the bottom side. Okay, so now we've come to the part in our journey here where we have to start moving this transmission around to get to all the rest of this. We got couple electrical connectors stuffed up there. This linkage has got a bracket stuffed up there, and then of course the upper bell housing bolts. So this is why we undid the motor, the engine mounts earlier, because we are going to put a jack underneath the pan here and undo all the bolts to the transmission cross member, and then using that jack we're going to lower this section of the transmission down and disconnect everything else and pull this sucker out of here. Okay, now that we've got our jack placed, it's going to be 13 millimeters for the cross member. One there, one there, and then 2 more over here. Wow, okay, so normally when you undo that cross member, it should just stay on the transmission. My mounts were just sheared right off. So probably keep a hand on it so it doesn't hit you in the face like it just did to me. Moving forward. Okay, so now we just lower this transmission down a little bit. And now we can start taking more stuff apart. Okay, I just wanted to show you guys just how far that engine actually rocks back to get the transmission into that position. So again, that's why it's just a good idea to undo those engine mounts. Otherwise you just risk putting strain on them, and I'm probably going to replace mine anyways, but if you got good mounts, you know, don't break them. So as you can see, there's just now a ton more room down here to work at. You can even see those E-torques way up there now, but the long extension we can at least get to them now. So at this time you can pretty much just start taking all this stuff off. Just pull that clip off that connector, turn it counterclockwise, this little tab here, just push that over, and then wiggle this thing on out of here. Just kind of maybe push that up or throw it wherever it is to get it out of the way. And then for that shift linkage, you've got a bracket right there with 2 10 millimeters. So just bust those loose, and you should be able to just fish them out by hand. Okay, once you got that loose, you're just going to loosen this little 13 here. You don't got to pull it off all the way. Just all you're trying to do is it's just pinching this into that little bracket there. So once that's loose, that's just going to fall out and drop. Okay, once you got this guy dangling, you're going to have to take this bracket off here to be able to fish that through the hole and pull the whole shifter out. So just a pair of wrenches, 17 millimeters, and just break that loose. Undo the one side, and the whole thing should just come apart, and there. Now you can pull it through like so. Alright, then I believe it's just this last electrical connector up here in the front. What I do is just make sure you got your lever back, and then you should be able to get up here onto this 10 millimeter and break that loose, spin that on out of there. Then with it hanging down, you can just kind of grab this thing by both hands and twist it, lefty loosey righty tighty, and that's it. She's loose. Okay, then the last thing is you've got these two transmission cooling lines. Those are gonna definitely have to go. It's just a 13 millimeter holding that bracket on. Just pop them out, and it's definitely gonna leak fluid, so have your catch pan ready. Now I know some guys, they'll just drain the whole transmission out, which is, I mean, honestly not a bad idea, but this transmission fluid, and this one's actually kind of new, and this shit is not really cheap, so we're gonna try and keep as much of it in the transmission as we can, and hopefully not just make a giant goddamn mess. So just spin that off there. like so. Back that bracket off out of there. That line's loose, that line's loose. And just let her sit there and drip for a little bit. And then we'll start pulling those bell housing bolts off, and then that's it. We pull this thing out of here. All right, now we got everything disconnected, we can start buzzing all these E-torques out and get this transmission out of here. So here's an idea of what you're gonna have to do. As you can see, I've got a pretty long extension set up here, and while these bolts look fairly easy to get to, I don't know if I can put this on camera. We're gonna try, but there are a series of bolts. There you go, man, awesome shot. So those four up there, most BMW enthusiasts and techs that I talk to say these are the struggle. So definitely take your time. I like to break them all loose by hand. That way we're not just hitting them with an impact. I mean, you strip one of these, I don't know, you probably gotta, pull the whole engine out or whatever. So I already went through and kind of loosened these up successfully, and now we're just gonna go ahead and buzz them on out, starting with this guy. Okay, now unfortunately these next four, I need both my hands to do this, and there's just no way I'm gonna get that on film. So I'm hoping you all got the idea of how to go about and do this. And yeah, here we go. All right, now that we got all the bolts out, we are ready to drop this transmission. I did go ahead and put a jack underneath the oil pan just in case this engine tries to fall out or do something weird. It shouldn't. I did go and thread the nuts back onto those engine mounts. You know, there's nothing like being under a couple 100 pounds and not knowing what will and won't crush you. So I just like to err on the side of caution here. Now, to get this loose, this little bolt, that's just one of the torque converter bolts that kind of fell down when we were taking that off. But what you can do is just stick your pry bar into these little recesses here, like so, and just kind of gently pry back. There she goes. So I now have a transmission teetering on a jack stand and definitely need both hands. So I will try to film what I can, but hopefully you all get the point. Wow, that actually went really well. So that's basically it. She's out. Just roll her out from underneath the car. You know, maybe double check, make sure you got everything loose. And yeah, cool beans. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the transmission has left the Beamer. Super stoked to get that thing out of there. Honestly, that was my first time ever pulling an automatic, so went fairly smooth. Now we just got to put it all back in. If you like this content, go ahead and hit that like button. Maybe give us a subscribe. We got another video coming up in the pipeline for a very interesting crank no start situation that was interesting to repair, to say the least. But yeah, this concludes this portion of the video. Next up, we'll be putting it all back together and maybe going for a drive. Peace.